Hi there, welcome to Hey Sound Guy, the podcast where I'll be peeking behind the curtains of the wonderful world of music. Each week I'll be speaking to sound engineers, music industry professionals, and musicians who will share some fun stories from the road. Now, my next guest is a good friend of mine. I've met him a few years ago working for Sound by Design and Delta Live. He's a great engineer. He's since gone on tour the last couple of years, and I haven't seen him. It was great to catch up again. Very talented engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Hill.
Good to see you again.
And you, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. You keeping well?
I'm keeping well, thanks. Keeping busy. Keeping myself busy.
Yeah.
In these times of quarantine, as you do.
It's strange times, isn't it? What are you doing to keep yourself busy? I think that's one of the things that people are struggling with.
I'm very fortunate in that I've got plenty of ideas and plenty of things to do. The podcast keeps me busy. And I've got little projects that I do in the backyard. Like I built like a fold-up loft bed for my daughter's treehouse. I built her a treehouse last year, and now I'm making all sorts of adjustments. And I built a fold-away table. I've been watching this Living Big in a Tiny House on YouTube. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, that's something similar, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. So
when really creative people just maximize tiny spaces.
Yeah. So I've been watching a lot of that, and I guess I'm practicing for when I'm going to build my own tiny house.
Nice.
I'm doing all sorts of these things and baking every day. We're baking something, trying to include my daughter in these things, because I mean it's also a skill that they don't get taught at school.
Yeah, it's true. And how old's your daughter?
She's 7.5. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So a crucial age where a lot of these skills are, very worthwhile, and also important to be homeschooled in some way as well, because they are family sort of traits and skill sets that are kind of
I think
specific to parents as well.
They're almost, sometimes more important than some of the things that they learn in school, because
definitely,
you're gonna have to know how to cook. You're going to have to know how to bake, and you're going to have to know how to make things if you want to kind of be independent. When I build things, I have her help me, and she's running around getting screws and getting the saw and getting the ruler and getting the measuring tape and all these sorts of things. And we're doing archery. I got her a bow a while ago, and I've got a target in the backyard.
Of course you did.
I got a target in the backyard. So... we're doing archery and things like that. So we're keeping busy. I still feel like I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do. So
sure. Well, your hours are then limited by the hours that your kids awake, isn't it? It's sort of determined by the time that they wake up and the time they go to bed. So you cram as much stuff in as possible to keep them entertained, look after them, and then all of a sudden they go to bed, and then all of a sudden it's like 8-9 o'clock. You're thinking about, oh shit, I need to eat dinner, and then I need to go to bed, and then it starts all over again the next day. But it's nice, and I think this time, although difficult for a lot of young families, it's pretty rewarding in terms of the time that you have with the kids.
Yeah,
you don't get that back.
Absolutely. How old's yours now? 3.
2,
right.
He'll be 2 next month. I think he's going to have a pretty lonely birthday. We'll all be there, but none of his mates will be.
Well, you can do Zoom meetings and apparently on Google Hangouts you can have up to 200 people.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, do you hear everyone at once?
I think you can, but you can also mute people individually.
Yeah.
I mean, she's
198 of them.
Yeah, she's been having sort of like virtual play dates with her friends every day with WhatsApp call, and WhatsApp now has a function where you can have multiple video calls. So they've sometimes got 4 friends on together, and they're talking and playing and showing what they've done, and My daughter and a friend of hers, they're writing a play at the moment, so there's a lot of planning and preparation going in there, and songwriting and script writing, and they're having a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Nice. It's unsurprising that these platforms are doing that, because I think that is, well, I mean, big business in it now, isn't there? You know, there's a lot of...
Indeed, yeah.
You can't go anywhere.
Can't go anywhere, so we got to do things at home. And yeah, I wonder. I had a dream last night about when we're finally out of quarantine, and what it's going to be like, and what people are going to be like behaving towards each other. Because I think it's kind of going to be, people are going to be scarred in a way, and they're going to be paranoid about, you know, giving each other a hug and stuff like that. And I mean, that's something that we all do. You know, we're friends, and we're like, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you. Give each other a hug. And now people are going to be doing the old fucking elbow thing.
Yeah, I think there'll be a behavioural shift, which is a bit of a shame, actually. I found it difficult initially when you'd still go to work in the good old days.
The good old days of 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you'd turn up to a job, and the first thing you do is you shake hands. That's just like how I like starting any interaction with someone. I always found it difficult when that never happened, or someone just wasn't into shaking a hand, and now it became enforced.
It's like there's a gap in the communication from the beginning. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then going back to, you know, I don't know how it will be later on, but I hope that it continues.
Yeah.
Because it's it'd be a shame for it to disappear.
I hope everybody kind of realizes what it is and gets over it. But you know, what are we gonna do? Who knows? Right. So now, I would like to start is if you can introduce yourself. We know you're Matt Hill, and what you do and how you came to do what it is that you do.
My name is Matt Hill. I am a sound engineer. Pretty questionable sound engineer.
I doubt that very much, mate.
Based in London. I'm currently in Scotland at the moment. My family and I moved up to see our family, like our parents, but a few weeks ago, before this COVID-19 pandemic got out of hand and lockdowns were enforced, and we've sort of found ourselves sort of stuck up here, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know, Scotland's got lovely fresh air and pretty questionable health ministers or chief medical officers. But yeah, and anyway, I've got you know, I've kind of, my brother's got some sound kit up here as well. He's got turntables and a bunch of great records, and I bought some kit up as well. So I've been kind of keeping myself occupied with bits. You know,
Great.
Fixed a microphone. This guy.
Done. What is that?
It's an Aria, which I think we're a Japanese guitar manufacturer.
Yes.
And it's I think
Great.
it's a UMC 755X. It's a bit lively, but I was hoping it would be my new shout. It's got a switch.
It's great.
But I think it picks up so much. It's meant to be a cardioid, but it's like,
it doesn't pick up that much. I mean, I've had a bit of trouble with. I think it's maybe a combination of this one and the other one I use if I've got a person here in the studio is one of those Rode NT1As. And I think what happens is it catches a little reflection on that side. So it sometimes sounds like I talk into a tube.
Yeah.
I'm
it's just kind of like
ways.
talking into a tube anyway. It's like it might not sound the best, but it's definitely one of the better looking mics I think I've ever had. And I think it was my grandfather's. He used to run an organ shop years ago, and he had loads of stuff.
Kidneys
and this just
and
needed a
livers
new
and all
AA
sorts.
battery inside for it to work again. So it doesn't take phantom power in the traditional sense. You just put a AA in there and you're good to go.
Fantastic. You can take it anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Great,
brilliant.
man.
I'm really chuffed with it.
Brilliant. So what was wrong with it?
What was wrong with it?
Yeah. It just
Nothing.
needed a new battery.
The battery just died. 40-year-old AA battery.
Right, yeah. No, that would do it. Right,
Yeah.
so you and I, we met each other working for Sound by Design at the Royal Albert Hall. I think it's probably about 6 years ago, something like that. And then
maybe longer than about
maybe.
6 or 7. Yeah, you're right.
And then you kind of you had a little change in the situation, and then you started touring, and then you disappeared. First of all, I'm very, very happy for you that you seem to be thriving. You're busy, you're touring, you're doing things, and you're grown into yourself. So kudos to you there. Proud of you.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about. You say you're living in Scotland now, but tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a sound engineer.
It starts like most sound engineers' backstory. Played in a couple of bands when I was younger. I was at Glasgow Uni. I was at the art school, and I started hanging out with a guitarist, and we started playing in a band together, and then I went on to another band, and the singer in that other band was just for extra pocket money he would do the sound at a pub called Pivo Pivo in Glasgow, and then I jumped on that. It was like a 12-channel analog board with a Bose upright speaker system, and they'd have like Polish metal bands that came in and were like, "Can't hear anything." Well, of course you can't hear anything. Like, you've got 3 Mesa Boogies on stage. Yeah. Which
this place is big as my living room.
Speaker they were like mic stands. They were that thin.
Yeah.
And at the same time, maybe a little bit later, I started working for a company called Galloglass.
Oh, I know Galloglass.
Yeah, crewing company, and we would put. We were the local crew for places like the SECC, Armadillo, and then corporate stuff as well. And I always enjoyed seeing big shows being put together. We would put out, whether it be crowd barrier or seating or whatever, for these, these sort of arena shows, or the SECC. I don't know what the capacity was, but it was a big old place. And I eventually started driving a cherry picker around for the riggers, which was that's a story in itself. That was ridiculous. I don't know how I got myself into that kettle of fish, but I did. Anyway, I saw these massive productions rolling in and rolling out in one day, and it was always really interesting. And then when 2012 Olympics came around, with Galloglass, I went down and worked on the Olympics at the stadium. And at that time, I was working for, I think ELP were doing the automated rigging systems for all the aerial artists that were coming in. And I noticed that this massive company, Delta, were there, or they seem to be, massive from what I could see. And I think I ended up speaking to a couple of people there. I was on site for 3 months or whatever, so I sort of met quite a few people, and now aware that there were quite a few people that I work closely with now that were on that job. And also through Galloglass in London, I was loading fashion shows in and out, and I started just talking to like the guys that were putting in Function 1 systems and these sort of dance stack stuff, and found it really interesting, and then just helped them as much as I could, and then started picking up sort of freelance bits for sound companies. That's it. I met this guy Lawrence Delaney at a fashion show, actually, and he said, "If you want to get into sound, come with me to the O2 Arena." Or was it Wembley? I think it was Wembley. It was like, "Come to Wembley tomorrow, Elton John's doing a show, and you can help me out. I'm doing video stuff, but I'll introduce you to some noise boys." And he did the same with Delta. So he was really this guy that sort of introduced me to people that I work with now.
Nice. Shout
all
out
those
to
moons ago, and
Lawrence Delaney.
So yeah, it was great. I mean, sometimes you need people like that. Just
100%, man. Yeah,
help you on your way.
Foothold to heave you upwards.
Yeah, exactly. I'm indebted to him, really. I don't keep in touch with him now. I should drop him a line. But there was every once in a while, I think you bump into these people that do just sort of help steer you down this road called life.
Yeah, well,
And from that was the Royal Albert Hall. I still work there, and so yeah, that was the backstory to getting started, I guess.
great, man. And how old were you? Like you say, when you were in college, you started playing in bands, and then you kind of got into the sound thing. What were you, like 19, 20?
Yeah, about that. I must have been about 20 when I started playing in bands.
Okay.
Uh,
So I take it the music
then-
came first, obviously.
It did, yeah. I was always into music. I actually started off at uni doing architecture, and I did first year twice. So that gives you
Right.
gives you an idea of my architectural skills. But I was always in. They could have made a fortune out of me if they'd kept me on.
If they
Anyway, I
just
left-
kept you motivated. Don't worry, Matt. Next year you're going to get it.
Yeah,
You're going to make that building stand. Strong foundations. If you do it 3 times in a row, you're going to have the best foundation ever.
Yeah, no, I think I just resubmitted the same foundation twice.
Yeah, brilliant.
Which was obviously flawed, building it on sand or whatever the phrase is. But but then I jumped and did audio engineering course at Caledonia University. I did a bachelor in audio engineering and electronics. That was it, which was cool. Met some cool people. Got into things like coding and programming. Looked at acoustics and all this sort of stuff. And DAWs, things like Max MSP, microphones, gain structure, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, the stuff
that you
they
don't
teach
really
you.
pay attention to until you actually have to use it later down the line. But
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And then it's like, wait, somewhere up there is the knowledge I need.
Yeah, but I don't have the time to remember it.
Google.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what instrument is it that you play? You play guitar?
Yeah, I used to play guitar a lot. I don't really
Okay.
play it anymore. I can noodle. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
I'm the
Yeah.
same. I don't play nearly as much as I should, or I guess if I want to really hard enough, then I would play. But yeah, like I said, I keep myself busy doing all sorts of other things, and especially in this time now, trying to entertain my daughter as much as possible in a positive way. And
Yeah.
try and keep.
She play any instruments?
Yeah, she's got a little guitar. We do some music lessons, and she's got a little piano, a little keyboard, and she likes doing that. And she's got a microphone. She likes singing. So yeah, she's into that, which is great. Not quite as much as I want to, because also, as much as I try and push it, I don't want to push it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll suggest that if we can do these things if you want. If you want to do it, you're going to have to want to do it. It's not that it's going to have to come from me. It's because if I keep pushing something, then you're going to, if she's anything like I am, which I think she is, then she's going to resist and she's going to rebel. If I get told to do things that I don't want to do, after a while, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, but that's it. If the interest will come as and when it, does.
Yeah. So I present the opportunities, and then she's welcome to grab it. Like, she doesn't always. I try and shoot my bow every day, at least about 30 arrows. Just keep.
How big's this bow? Is it like a full-on bow? You got it. Of course you've got it in there. I can see the arrows. Holy smokes.
There
It's
you
like
go.
a proper weapon, that, isn't it? Do you need-
It'll definitely fucking kill someone. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If
I mean, it's quite sophisticated.
yeah.
I imagined it's sort of just like a, like a
Oh, I got one of those as
Robin
well.
Hood bow.
I got one of those as well. It's up against the wall. I don't really use that so much. I concentrate on the compound bow. It's a nice little workout on its own. It's a 55-pound draw weight, which is relatively small when you think about these compound bows. They go up to about 80-pound draw weight. But I'm
What's
still,
that? The weight that you pull on it?
yeah, it's like how much it takes to to pull it to full release or to full draw length, and then the release is easy because they've got those little cams that roll over, and once you've got it at full draw, then it's really easy to hold it. I mean, you can hold it there for like a minute without really fatiguing yourself. Whereas with a regular bow, it's when it's at full draw length, it's at its most difficult point. So holding it there and aiming is the harder thing. But I mean, anyway, you shouldn't be aiming for a minute anyway. But yeah.
What kind of range can you get on it?
Well, in my backyard, I've got two spots. I've got a 15-meter spot and a 20-meter spot that I shoot from. But yeah, I mean, you can, I don't know, they about 60, 70 yards, something like that. I don't know. I've never really actually, shot it at long range. Because there's no space here.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of one of the things you need with a bow and arrow, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm fortunate in that I've got a bit of a backyard, and I can keep the eye keen to just keep shooting at it. But yeah, I put up a big board behind it so I don't shoot through the back fence, because that would definitely not be cool if I puncture someone as they walk past. But I don't miss the target, so it's okay.
Oh yeah, good man.
Yeah, still yeah, and so I see you've got the turntables in the back there. You DJing? You keeping yourself busy?
These are my brothers. And he's got some great records, so I've been playing some. Yeah, he's got loads of. He's basically got, between my brother and I, we've got my dad's entire collection. So,
nice.
Loads of old boogie, disco, funk, soul.
10, 12 albums.
It's great. Yeah, loads of stuff. But no, I wouldn't class myself as a DJ at all. But I do. I've got a record collection which I'm proud of, and I do enjoy it.
Nice.
There's a few DJs that I've always enjoyed listening to throughout. Have been quite inspiring. I used to be a bit of a clubber when I was in Glasgow. Yeah, played in a couple of metal bands.
Funny,
and used to go
you
to
don't have a Glaswegian accent by any measure.
No. It's It depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a Glaswegian, the twang will come out a wee bit more. Okay. And that's really just self-defense, I think.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'm from here. I'm a local.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a fucking foreigner, bro.
But yeah, I don't know. I still enjoy it. I like playing music. I'm kind of working on something at the moment. It's a continuation of a little radio show that I did 4 years ago called Zero Budget Radio. And I think this is me plugging it.
Last night I was lying because I set up our camping tent in the backyard, and Savannah and I we slept in the tent last night. She loved it. But as I was sort of like just lying there trying to fall asleep, I was thinking, I was thinking about you, and me doing this podcast kind of originated from me talking to you after a gig maybe 5 years ago, where you and a mate were doing this sort of pirate radio show.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And I think the seed kind of got planted, and I was like, man, that's interesting. That's something I'd really like to do. And since, I was told from a very young age that I have a face for radio, that I might want to go into that. And yeah, I mean, I think that was sort of like the impetus for this. And then a secondary sort of thing was when I was touring with Ceramic in 2016. The bass player Greg Hoffman, I've had him on, him and Marcus Foster, the brains behind Ceramic. They did every now and then, just for shits and giggles. They didn't even release it. They just did this sort of like podcast type thing where they would listen to the rest of the album of the one-hit wonders and then comment on the songs and stuff.
That's a good concept. I like it.
Brilliant, man. Because you get all these one-hit wonders they've got the one song, but they brought out a whole album, and then they would listen to the rest of the album and kind of comment on that.
I imagine there's some really great albums out there that were just overlooked because of the one-hit wonder, and you're stereotyped into being that.
Yeah.
Nice. I like the concept. It's cool.
Yeah, it's great,
cool.
man. Yeah. So from how old were you when you started playing the guitar?
I was young, I think, maybe, I don't know, 12, 13. Can't quite remember, but like most kids at that age, I had a Yamaha Pacifica.
Got to start somewhere, man.
It might have been 13, 14, yeah. Well, originally I started off with just an acoustic guitar that my grandfather gave me, which had a couple of strings on it, and I'd have to go round to an old family friend who lived around the block for him to tune it for me, because I didn't know how to do that. And then I'd come back to the house and he'd teach me a couple of things, and then I'd come back to the house, and of course it would be out of tune by then. So most of the time I was learning to play an acoustic guitar out of tune.
Brilliant.
And then got up, and my dad was always like, do you know what, if you can play anything on an acoustic guitar, you can play it on an electric guitar, so stick with the acoustic. And that was great. But then obviously, because the music that I was listening to, started listening to some sort of rock, started listening to Metallica a lot, and got a Yamaha Pacifica and this little Yamaha practice amp, and it was great. It was a great little combo. Probably cost about £120 for the guitar and the amp together. It's just brilliant. And then continued playing. I used to put on gigs for my mum and dad with my brother. My brother had like a 3/4 length bass guitar. It was like awful, and he was all right. He used to play in a concert orchestra at school, but he would turn the volume of his guitar right the way down so he couldn't be heard.
Smart.
Poor guy didn't have any faith in himself. But we used to put on these little gigs for my mum and dad, which was great. Obviously sort of early exposure, or ahead of my time with putting on shows or being part of shows, I guess. Just continued to play. I used to come home from school and put on like a Metallica DVD and play as much of it as I could, pretend that I was on stage. I used to love it.
Yeah, man.
And I think when I eventually moved out of the house, I think my dad really missed the sound of
you just jamming
riffs.
Brilliant.
Blaring from the bedroom. But it was fun. And I think I played it right up until I moved down to London in 2012. And when I moved down to London, there was a few things that were just a bit difficult. First of all, I had to just constantly work to be able to pay rent, and then with working in the live events stuff, even when it was with Gallowglass, the hours are just difficult to sort of. And finding people to play with and finding a space, and
I mean, not so much just finding the people to play with, but also for them to have time to meet up. I mean, it's
a logistical
really
nightmare.
Difficult. I mean, even with this thing, I got things planned out way in advance. I mean, I've sort of booked full until the end of July.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, with your podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I try and I think because I don't want to let things go and kind of see. So I'm making a commitment to getting the appointments filled. It's only once a week. But I've got those filled every week, and I've got a schedule. I've got to release one every week as well. Kind of it's a motivator and a but yeah, it's sometimes people, even if you booked way in advance, they're like, oh, sorry, I can't do this one, can we do another date? And yeah, so it's really hard in London to nail people down to especially if it's just a jam or a rehearsal. People are going to prioritize work over other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. It seemed a lot easier to orchestrate in Scotland when I was here. I think I might stay up here. Try and
Go
convince
for
my
it, man.
wife.
Go for it. Stay in Scotland.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
I've considered moving to Edinburgh, to be honest with you, quite a few
Yeah,
times.
it's beautiful.
Edinburgh is amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, either that or maybe the Netherlands or somewhere in Scandinavia.
Oh, that would be lovely. Quite
Mate.
expensive. Netherlands is cool. Scandinavia, I mean, it's all beautiful.
Yeah.
It's all lovely.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I think this whole sort of COVID-19 scare stuff at the moment is shedding light on how Britain. I think Britain's a great country, but I think Britain stopped doing things really well, and it stopped doing things really badly. It just sort of muddles along.
And just floats
you know,
about.
it's constantly sort of meh. You know, nothing's
100%.
really disappointing. Nothing's really great. And when you hear about how it's really interesting actually to see how other countries are dealing with stuff. But I'm not going to go down that line. But
No, but I mean that's relevant even to gigs. If you go around Europe and you do gigs, if you do a tour around Europe, the way in which you get treated and the way the respect that you get shown and it's on another level. And then you come back to the UK, which is supposed to be a world leader, and it's just like meh, really.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you end up being super disappointed, or you walk away being just furious. And I can see that as well. Sometimes when I see traveling bands coming in, and the way that they get treated, it's not great.
No, it's not. There's not the right. It's not the same funding, is there? There's not. Particularly in terms of venues. You go to some of these places in Europe, and there's a lot of money from the state, and these venues are just beautiful. They're wonderful. They're well thought out. The hospitality is brilliant.
They've got crew.
There's a few great ones in the UK. The Roundhouse, I think, is a particularly good venue, but of course that's a lot. There's a lot of money there from the Arts Council. Yeah. So the rest, a lot of the main touring circuits of the UK are the venues are funded by telecommunications, companies.
And for them it's all about
dropping
this.
any names, but they've got the money. But then the money still isn't spent in the right way.
It's not.
I've been on a few shows last year where a few venues, reasonably large venues and successful, bands on a decent touring circuit will hit those venues, and they're telling me, they're like, oh well, great, we're trying out this new PA in here. I was like, great, have you sorted the room out though? Has anyone looked at the acoustics of this room?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh well, no, but we're putting in this new. We're AB encoder, JBL, DMBL, whatever, and it's like, it's great. You can spend as much money as you want on a PA system in here, but nobody's looked at the room. And the acoustics of this room are just as bad as they were 10 years ago, and that's where the complaints are coming from. You can put any system in here, it's still going to sound like the same old room.
Exactly.
And you could go, why is no one if you don't, I understand it, like venues, they want to spend that money on something that they understand, they can see, and that often is a new sound system. But if they don't want to spend any money on an acoustician coming in, go to a university and get the kids to do that. You look at the venue as their project for their dissertation or whatever, and because not only is that real life experience for them, real world experience for them, but it gives data for venues to look at and ask for opinions. It's like it boils my blood. It really does, because I don't care how much money you're willing to spend on a system. Spend that money on sorting the room out first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also sometimes it's for venues and the managers at venues. They don't fully recognize the importance of these
No,
things,
exactly.
and
That's what I'm
also
saying. Yeah.
they don't recognize the importance of us, what we do, because I've had I remember I had a fight with a manager once where he overstepped the line completely. He was a new young manager, and I get it, right? He wanted to make his mark and everything. I just put him in his place, but it had gotten a bit heated, and I'd kind of told him that if he keeps it up, I'm gonna take him outside and dust him off a little bit.
Bow
And
and arrow.
well, no, that was before the archery days. I think I was just going to use the old left-right. But I mean, this was just, and I'd realized straight away I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. First of all, he aggravated. He started the situation, but I should have been more professional, and I should have not handled the way that I did. I went to him afterwards and I said, "Listen, I'm sorry." He wouldn't have any of it. So the next day, I went in, and the big boss came, and he was super angry at me and everything. And I explained the situation, what had happened, these and those, and he just turned to me as like, you know what? I just want to let you know that you're not important here as you think you are. And I said, okay, fair enough, I get it. Me personally, I'm replaceable. Yeah, I get that. But the job that I do here it's a music venue. You cannot go without us. It's just not possible. You can die right now and not show up for work tomorrow, and this place is going to run the way it's always done. Maybe there'll be a bit of an adjustment period. Any one of your staff can just not turn up and the place will run. If we have a band, say it's a quintet, and one of them don't turn up, the gig can still happen, but if I'm not here, nothing is going to happen. And I'm not talking about me personally, but me as in the position that I fill. In a music venue, that's not going to happen. So, there's no reason for you to look down on me or think that I, think more of myself than I should do. You have to realize the importance of the job that I do. And again, it's not me, it's the job that I do. I've now, we've got a bit of a thing going on with a venue not wanting to pay us for work that we've already done in February, and they'd explained to us that they need to pay their waiting staff first before they can think about looking at us, and that I mean is kind of that's very disrespectful, because it shows us that apparently these people are more important than us. And I'm not saying that the job they do isn't important, but it's a music venue. So, first and foremost, people aren't going to come there unless there's music being performed. And the music can't get performed unless me or a colleague or somebody in my position, my capacity, is there to facilitate that happening. So I think sometimes priorities are a bit mixed up. Like when you go to Europe, there's that respect is there straight away. And I'm not saying that we need to blow our own horns or that we're all this important, but it's a difference that you can see, like immediately, in the way that you're treated.
Yeah.
We went to Turkey the other day with Simande, fantastic place called Babylon in Istanbul. I don't know if you've been there. Beautiful, amazing place. And I mean, there were sound engineer, stage tech, lighting engineer, artist liaison, and about 6 or 7 crew, whereas you go into the UK, sometimes you get there and you have to wait for the one guy to come and open the place up, or it's so understaffed that this one person has to, I'll be right back with you because I just got to go fix a fridge or something, you know what I mean? It's we're
exactly. I've just got to go
stretched
to Sainsbury's and get your rider.
so thin. Oh yeah, it just shows up in the fucking package.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean, it's it's tough. I think some of the better venues in Europe. The reason it cuts both ways really, but if you provide a good working environment and the money's decent, you'll have some of the best places I've experienced. The crew that work there tour together, and when they're not on the road, they'll talking stage manager, monitor guy, front of house guy. Lighting guy, they all know each other from working on tours, working with bands. And when they're not busy with the band, they'll go and work at this brilliant venue. They get dark hours, so no sound, no lights. Everyone needs to clear the stage. Everyone goes and has a really nice dinner, good bottle of wine. It's all just managed. It's lovely. Everyone has a good show. Everyone, it's not like there's just no shouting. Which is nobody wants shouting. Like what you're saying, no one wants shouting at gigs. But I think here, there's first of all the money's not right. I think you're working long days for not a huge amount of cash, and the hours are long. Nobody puts on shows in the afternoon, so it has an impact on your family being away, either being away, but even working in venues in your home city. You're still getting home at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock after loading a truck.
Yeah, or 4 or 5 o'clock, and if your venue shuts at 3, sometimes.
Yeah.
You gotta. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh,
hey ho.
Okay, I thought something had disappeared there for a second, but we're good. Yeah. So, what are your plans? Have you got any? Well, I suppose have you had any tours that were gonna come up that got cancelled?
Like a lot of people. Yeah, like a lot of people.
It's so weird.
The thing that it is what it is. It's sad. It's disappointing. The thing that I'm most not upset's not the right word, but longing for was festival season. I love festival season. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think the amount of music that you're exposed to, and the bands that you see, and the mates that you meet, and you make friends, and you're all sort of doing the same circuit over a couple of months, and it's just brilliant. I love festival season so much. I mean, it's hard work, and it can be a little bit hairy.
Yeah.
It's like you're turning up to this random place, this random festival in wherever, and half of the channels don't work, or your lines list is wrong, or you've lost something, or someone had to. It's. But I love it. Purely for the amount of bands that you see, the number of bands that you see, the people that you meet, the conversations that you strike, the things that you learn, and the positions that you're thrown into.
You get to learn a lot about yourself.
Say again?
You get to learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, you get to, but also I think a few years ago, this artist that I was working for, we would go from a few little warm-up shows in small venues, and then onto a main stage at a major festival like Benicassim, and they're or any of these large stages, and Pukkelpop, Pink Pop stuff. You're thrown onto these kind of big stages. You don't have a sound check. You get a decent line check, and you can hear a few things. They're not. It's not like the UK where you've got 25 minutes to roll your risers on, do a line check.
Yeah.
And then start the show with no shofar, or a questionable shofar if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So it can be pretty tough. But then you learn. You're chatting to someone else who's been in the game for ages,
disappeared,
and they're telling you about how they mix a show on a big system. You learn from system techs about these big systems.
Oh, there you go.
You have to be cautious about mixing levels and keeping it all safe, because the rules are there for a reason. People sort of dismiss the noise police, but I think they're doing a great job. I think, but they do a really, really important job. And I thought a lot. Did I lose you?
Yeah, for a little bit there. But it's fine. Yeah, no, it is true what you're saying. I mean, but then unfortunately sometimes they go sort of too far,
Who? What,
the noise
the
police.
noise police.
Sometimes, sometimes it's unreasonable. But yeah, at festivals and things, yeah, very important. And they don't set unreasonable noise levels. They don't say fucking 80 dB, do they?
No,
but then
they don't.
You
I think
get
it's pretty
to
reasonable. I think it's a tough one. I think it's a really tough job.
Yeah.
Because those rules are there for a reason, and that comes down to licensing. And it's these conversations have exist. They've happened for a long time. These rules are put in place. It only takes one person to, take it a little bit too far or dismiss this. It's a conversation between whoever it is from whatever company and whoever the system tech is from company, and it should just be a conversation. I think it's also really important that young engineers learn to mix at 95, at 93, 95, because these, the influx of inner city festivals, got like All Points East and I mean that's the only one I can think of at the moment, but they've got, some would argue they've got pretty draconian noise measures in place, but it's not to say that you're going to disappoint your audiences just because the level's low. It's just a different way of mixing. It's something I'm not good at, and I'm not saying that I mix loud all the time. I don't, but it's not just a case of bringing down your master fader. It's about getting your gain structure, your dynamics, and your all of that working in the same way that you would mix without those limitations. And I've never ever gone ridiculous with mixing. I think there's no need for it at all. But I think it's important for certainly younger engineers that are coming into this to have the skill, have the understanding of how to mix at 95. Because I think we're just going to see a lot more of that happening.
I suppose, yeah, especially in, like you said, the inner city festivals. You get them in the parks, and they're obviously the people who live around the parks normally are people who've got a little bit of that, and they like to bitch and moan about this and that and these and those. But it's very true what you're saying in that people need to.
It's a problem with venues as well.
Yeah.
You get people that are moving into venues that have been there for 20 years, and they spend a load of money on a flat, and they're like, "Whoa!" And it's cool because it's next to this great venue, and then
they start
it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're like, "Wait a second, what?" Yeah. That's really loud.
Yeah.
What are they doing? I'm going to shut them down. And it becomes really, really tough. And a lot of small music venues in the UK face being closed down. Because it's just I don't know what the answer is, but I think there needs to be some sort of protection for.
I think there needs to be a law against these people. If you're moving into a venue or next to a venue, you should know that this is how it is. Either you decide right now that you're going to live with it, or you don't move in here. I think it should be as simple as that, really. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's also sort of, I think sometimes a misunderstanding on the part of whoever manages the venue and the people who book the venue to put events on. Like, I see that a lot with like weddings and stuff. I work for a bunch of function bands, primarily one called The Sessions, really good band, very nice. And it's, there's 8, a 10 or a 12 piece version of the band. Obviously the 12 piece has got 2 BVs, full horn section. Well, I say full horn section, sax, trumpet, trombone, guitar, keys, bass, drums, the lot, right? 2 main vocals, and so they can get loud, if you would imagine. And I remember we went into this venue, which first of all was the weirdest shape. It was this really long venue, very narrow, but instead of playing sort of down the room, if you will, like sort of down the room, we were playing on the one side, and it was all around here. So it was the stage took up more than half the width of the room. Mm-hmm. So in front of the stage, there could only be a few people standing there. And they had a 87 dB noise limit. You're like, okay, I can't.
Audience are often louder
I
than
can't.
that.
Yeah, of course they're louder than that. I'm like, I can't do this. I've got to. And they booked the full band, the 12-piece fucking iteration. There was a guy on percussion as well and everything. I was like, how is this? This is just not possible. So
it's really
there's
tough,
a
isn't it?
bit of a communication breakdown in those sorts of things. But I think, sometimes it is important to have those limits in place. Also because, they are probably considering people's oral well-being, if you will,
Of
because
course,
the majority of
course.
people out there, they don't realize or understand that listening to music at loud volumes for an extended period of time is going to cause fucking damage. And by the time you're 60, you're going to be like, what? All the time.
Yeah.
We kind of studied this and we know how it works. So for us, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. But for 95% of the world population, they wouldn't fucking know any difference. So they'll just like put it on up to 11 for 11 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, apart from the Dutch, the Dutch are brilliant, man. Like, they'll tell you when it's shit. They'll tell you when it's too loud. You get find more complaints in Holland. I haven't had that many complaints, but they'll come and tell you it's like it's a bit loud and it's a bit shit.
Wow.
What's
Definitely
that?
didn't.
Oh wow, great.
Thanks, guys. Lots of positivity there. Yeah, that's one of my sort of pet hates, I suppose, is if somebody says it sounds shit. Like, okay,
Oh,
can
man.
you explain to
Oh,
me what
God.
shit sounds like? Can you describe it?
I saw it happened to me once. This guy, I think it was I don't know where it was. It might have been. It was a UK festival. It could have been Transmit or something. No, I can't remember. But anyway, this guy came in and told me that the bass was too loud. And anyway, the Interpol's front of house engineer was standing next to me. He was setting up his kit, a guy called Harley, really, really nice guy. And he just went and had a word with him. And I was like, what did he say to him? And he was like, look, you can't come in and tell someone, like when they're put in a position to try and pull a gig together at festival from scratch.
Yeah.
Your opinion, just like
The
just
first
leave
song,
it, 'cause
yeah.
he's not. But then I there was recently I was looking after the PA at Royal Albert Hall, and the front of house engineer who was mixing the headliner was also mixing the support act. It made sense, and he did a really, really good job with the headliner, and the support act, in my opinion, sounded great. It was a very different style of music. The headliner was, it was like good old classic sort of 70s disco rock stuff or whatever. And then the headliner, the support act, was, new age industrial electronic with loads of effects, loads of swish,
Kind
loads
of like you have to know it.
yeah, loads of track and a bit kind of, I thought it was cool. It was interesting. But after the support, this group of extremely irate middle-class people came up and just gave this front of house engineer hell for it's not sounding right. And look, I was standing there completely objectively listening to the support acts, and I thought it sounded great. People were enjoying it, but their language was completely inappropriate. It was like, you should be ashamed of yourself. That was absolutely shocking. And he was like, look, I'm sorry. It's a tough room, and it is a bloody tough room. There's no doubt about it. But there was no need for their attitude to him. And at the end of it, he was like, look, I know what I'm doing. It didn't sound like that.
Yeah.
It didn't sound
Yeah,
shit. I was like, of course it didn't. But people, for whatever reason,
I bet you. Let me take a stab at what had happened. Like, they were all together, this group, and one person there started commenting and got the whole fucking group rowdied up. And since they're upper middle class, they think their fucking word matters more than anybody else's, and they have to give everybody their fucking opinion. That's probably what had happened. He's like, all right, let's go up there, fucking mob justice, bring the pitchforks and the torches. But yeah, I mean, the one of the big reasons why I started this podcast is because, like I said, 98% of the world population, they'll go to gigs and they'll have a good time and whatever, but they don't understand the work that goes in to putting on a show, because a lot of the times, a show could be for you if you're on tour. It could be one of 20 or 30 or 40 shows, depending on how long the tour is. Even more, if you're doing a 6-month tour, you can do like 120 shows or something, So for you, it's another show. And for us, it's another show. And sometimes things go bad. And a lot of the times those circumstances are out of our control. But for these people, it's their one show. So it's their be-all and end-all.
Yeah, and they've spent money on tickets, and I get it.
Yeah, no, we try and do as much as we can to make every show as good as we can. But like you said, it can be that the support band was the kind of band that really needed to bring their own engineer. Because sometimes if you don't know the music, you can't mix it that well. And we can't be expected to know everybody's music.
Yeah, sure. That I agree with you completely. This was on a tour. This was like the last show of a 5-week tour or whatever. So he had done it every night. He knew what he was doing. But yeah, I do agree with you. Sometimes, actually, contrary to that, I've been in positions where I thought, actually, I probably should have just let the house guy do it, because it's like a gig where you literally have got no time to throw it together. It might be televised. You're walking up to a desk and you're kind of you off the back of someone else's file, who's doing a lot of the other stuff. And actually, what it comes down to is like you sometimes making the decision to ensure that the artist gets the best possible results sometimes means taking a step back and letting someone that is sort of built that infrastructure around whatever show's happening. You just let them do it. And I've thought that a couple of times, actually. Like, do you know what? I think, given the way that this is going now, and
would you mind stepping in?
And its restrictions and lack of time, it's just easier if you just do it. I mean, it's a 32 channel gig. It's pretty standard. Just you can do it.
That's it.
So I think as an engineer, sometimes you got to have that. Like I say, take that step back and ensure that the best possible results are going to happen. If that means that you're not doing it,
that's a very mature approach.
Say again?
That's a very mature approach.
Well,
you've definitely grown up quite a lot.
Nothing, which is great.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's. In all honesty, I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I'm like, I think it's better that you do it, because maybe I'm an egotist, or maybe I don't know. For me, my show, I want to do it, and I'll
I think I've lost you, T.
Oh, Jesus. Are we back? Not back yet. Something to do with my internet connection.
Hello.
We're back? You back? I got you. Hello. I can see you. I can see you.
I can see you, and I can hear you now. Great.
I can see you. Yeah, no, I mean that I think that's a very mature approach, and I think I've been fortunate enough not to have to make that decision yet. But yeah, sure. I mean, end of the day, that person is also an engineer, so they would be able to do it.
Yeah.
But are you talking about like your band, or are you talking about like a support band or something?
Well, I mean, it's really dependent on the environment. There's like, there's a few things where it was like a kind of live televised thing with no sound check, and there's an infrastructure that is built to cater for primarily the live broadcast of
Yes.
everything, you know. And if you're rocking up, I just think, like, I don't know. It really depends. I'm not saying this is like I've done this many times, but I think sometimes just being able to take a step back and say,
and be in
I
an
can advise you on
advisory
this and
role
stuff,
rather.
but what's that?
Be in an advisory role rather.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, I think, because you know, it could go the other way. Like, if you get involved and you fuck it up, then you're it's like everyone looks like a dick.
Yeah,
you
fair
know.
enough.
So
yeah, I mean,
So-
I lie. I have done that a few times where obviously when we were doing Letterman with James McCartney, I wasn't I was there as an advisor. Those guys are very much on it, and they did their thing. When we did last year, when we did Simande,
I think in these sort of circumstances as well, the value lies in having a monitor engineer. I think, because that's where the band's comfort sits. You know.
yeah.
You've got a nice little monitor package, or you're an engineer working for the band. A few times, as a front of house engineer, I've jumped on to do monitors just because that makes most sense. You know, there's no point in having a front of house engineer twiddling his thumbs, advising someone. You just jump on monitors or whatever. You know, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, monitors is a different beast, isn't it? It's Yeah, I mean, I'm happy doing both front of house and monitors. I guess my strengths aren't really in system teching and things like that, and that's maybe an area I need to improve on. But it's strange how, because when I started, I had this idea in my head that everybody who's a sound engineer's main aim would be doing front of house or monitors. But I've found out that that's not true. That some people go in there and they I want to be a system tech, or I'm going to be the RF tech. I want to be a good stage manager. You know, these sorts of things. And that would be the focus of their discipline. You know, with regards to sound, but still, you know, they want to do something else. And that for me was kind of like, okay. An aha moment.
Yeah. Well, it's about being an audio engineer in all sorts of, you know, disciplines.
Yeah.
I think variety is super, super important.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one set of skills, but also you don't want to spread yourself too thin. But I think the end of it just comes out of what you find most interested, and just sort of finds a way, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's you gotta just, but I think it's very important, like you said, not to spread yourself too thin, and therein lies it's a balancing act, isn't it? You gotta see which of these disciplines am I gonna focus on, which of these are the ones that I'm gonna be, which is my main focus, and which is I'm gonna excel at or try and excel at.
Exactly.
And which are my secondary focuses, and which are the ones that I'm happy to leave to other people. And I think system teching and those things are something that at the moment I'm very happy to leave to other people. I know how to plug things in, and I know how to make things sound okay, so I'll stick with that.
I always love having conversations with system techs at the beginning, particularly at festivals, because you know, they're usually going to be laughing at me by the end of the gig. So I might as well try and make them laugh with me at the beginning of the gig and talk about, just have a bit of banter.
Oh, it's so important. It's so important, man. To create this, to build a rapport with somebody, especially with the amount of time that you get to see these people. We see different musicians coming in every second, third day, different engineers. The venues where I work, very rarely do we get engineers come in with the bands. But when you're on the festival circuit, when you're on, you see a person for a day, a couple of hours, and you have to build this rapport. And I think that's also sort of an important part of the game, important skill to have or at least develop. Like you said, I mean, if you can make them feel at ease with your presence, then the working relationship's going to be a lot easier. But if you go in there and you've got an attitude
Yeah.
or you're negative, then it's going to put a lot of strain on the situation. And I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I've the thing about our job is that these skills can be learned, they can be taught, but it's about having the right attitude, which is the most important thing, because that you can't teach anybody. Um,
Hello?
it's hello. Have I disappeared again? God damn it! Hello.
Think I got you.
Okay, we're
There we
back.
go.
Yeah, maybe the internet connection is unstable. It says, right. Okay, the the corona's gotten into the fucking telephone lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well. Anyway, I think maybe we should then, just before this thing fucks out again, maybe we should cut this, and then we can do maybe another one, since we're all free and we got some more time.
Absolutely, man.
And we can do another one.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah,
us,
I'd love to.
have you got any sort of projects coming up? Or you anything you wanna share that's interesting?
Zero budget radio.
Zero budget radio, right? Well,
that's
is that
gonna-
what it's called?
That's good. Zero budget radio. That is going to happen again next week. It's going to be good news radio, but it's still zero budget radio.
Fantastic.
And that I know, that's it. Day by day, week by week at the moment.
Fantastic.
I think we'll see how it goes.
Are you
See how
gonna
it goes.
you video it as well, or is it audio only?
I don't know. I think it's just audio only.
Okay.
They're all up on Mixcloud.
Okay.
Type in zero budget radio on Mixcloud and you should find 20 odd episodes.
gonna
I mean, it's just
definitely do that.
stupid, but
And I'll
that's
put it in
probably
the
what I'm going to
description.
work on. I think what you're doing is great. I think these podcast things are brilliant. And it keeps communication up and it keeps spirits high.
I think so. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it, like I said, it just kind of shows other people that we're people too.
Yeah,
because like I
exactly.
said, a show, there's so many different factors that makes a show work or don't work, and they can just be one of those things, and sometimes those things can be out of our control completely, but we end up taking the rap because we're the face of it. It's kind of like sound engineering is kind of like teaching, where if the child or the band does well, performs well, what a great band, what a clever child. When they don't perform well, what a shitty teacher, what a fucking idiot sound engineer. You know what I mean? We're the front line of abuse, and rarely kind of get the. It's nice when it does happen, when people do say thank you and people do recognize that.
Yeah.
That's very nice. It rarely happens, but this is it's not what this is not why I do it.
I used to look for compliments, and now if you don't get, if no one says anything, that's good news.
Yes,
do you know?
No news is good news. Yeah. I look at it in the sense of, if people forget that I'm there, then I've done my job correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had so many times where a show has been super successful, and then in the dressing room afterwards, the guy's like, "Oh shit, I forgot to mention you. I forgot to say thank you." I said, "You know what? I don't care. That's fine. It means that I've done my job to a level where you forgot about me. So you must have been so comfortable that it's a good thing. It's fine. I prefer it that way than I can't fucking hear myself over the mic during a show, which is just let that go. Unfortunately, it happens, even though people know not to do that. Even veterans do that. I've had a few times where people who've been in the business a long time and probably should know better, just because it's not productive in any way, because now you're drawing the attention of the entire crowd onto something as well that's actually not really a problem. You know, you could have signaled to me with hand signals. I could have fixed it, and it would have been a seamless kind of process, rather than now you're upset and the crowd's upset and I'm fucking upset because you're disrespecting me in a way that's, you know, it's not acceptable. So, you know, what you're gonna do, but it's better to be forgotten about. I like to work in the shadows, like a fucking ninja.
Work in the shadows, that's it.
Yeah, lovely, man. Matt, it's been lovely talking to you, and
it's been great catching up with you, man.
Zero Budget Radio. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm gonna put it in the description. And
yeah. Well, wait, maybe not just yet. Wait until I've got this new one done. The other ones I can't even remember what they're about. Well, but yeah, look, it's been wonderful chatting.
It has.
And keep fighting the good cause. I think this, you know, these little podcast things are great.
Yeah. Well, trying to keep people's spirits up and trying to keep the communication flowing.
Super important.
Yeah, man.
Good man.
Thank you so much.
All right, great chatting to you.
And until next time.
Yeah, take it easy, man.
I hope you enjoyed that. I will be sharing Matt's social media, as will I do mine, in the description. I have a Patreon page, so if you want to support the podcast, you can do that there. It's patreon.com/HeySoundGuy. As always, like, share, subscribe, keep it sound.